The space station called Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between stars. It was a place where many species came to trade, to talk, and to do business. Humans had only been part of the galactic community for 50 years. They were still considered new, still considered weak. Park Tay did not care what aliens thought of humans. He was an engineer. He fixed things. That was his job, and he was good at it. Every morning, he woke up in his small room on the station. Every day, he walked through metal corridors filled with creatures from 100 different worlds. He kept his head down. He did his work. He was 28 years old, and he was content. On this particular day, Tay was on his knees beneath a control panel. Sparks flew as he reconnected wires. His hands were steady. His mind was focused. He did not notice the station had grown quiet around him. He did not notice until a shadow fell over him. Tay looked up. A woman stood there, but she was not human. Her skin was pale blue, smooth like polished stone. Her eyes were large and gold, and they looked at him the way a collector looks at a rare item. Behind her stood soldiers in silver armor. Around her stood advisors in flowing robes. This was Empress Vila of the Korath Dominion. The Korath were old. They had ruled their part of the galaxy for 10,000 years. They were powerful beyond measure, and they had a custom that made other species fear them. When a Korath noble saw something they wanted, they simply took it. A ship, a planet, a person. They called it claiming. No one had refused a claim in 3,000 years. Vila had come to Nexus Prime for diplomacy. She had come to remind the galaxy of Korath power. But now she stood still, looking at this human on his knees with tools in his hands. There was something in his eyes. When everyone else on the station had bowed as she passed, this man had not even noticed her. And now that he looked at her, he did not look away. He did not tremble. Who is this? Vela asked her advisor. Lord Daros checked his device. A human, Empress. A simple engineer. Nobody of importance. Vela smiled. It was a cold smile. I like his eyes. There is fire in them. She stepped closer to Tay. He stood up slowly. He was not tall, but he stood straight. He still held his tools. Human, Vela said. Her voice was soft but carried across the silent station. I am Empress Vila of the Korath Dominion. I claim you. Tay blinked. He had heard of Korath claims. Everyone had. He knew what the words meant. She wanted to take him, to own him, to make him her property. No, he said. The word hung in the air. Somewhere, someone gasped. Vila's golden eyes widened slightly. Then she laughed. It was a beautiful sound, like crystal chimes. No, you say no to me? I am not property, Tay said. His voice was calm. His heart was beating fast, but he did not let it show. I am a human citizen. I belong to no one. Lord Daros stepped forward with anger on his face. You dare refuse the Empress? Do you know what we could do to your pathetic species? Enough, Vela said. She was still smiling. She looked at Tay with new interest. How fascinating. In 3,000 years, no one has ever refused me. You are either very brave or very stupid. Maybe both, Tay said. Vela laughed again. Oh, I like you even more now. But your words change nothing. I have claimed you. You will come with me. She turned to her guards. Take him. 2 soldiers moved forward. They were huge, nearly 3 meters tall, covered in silver armor. Tay knew he could not fight them. He was an engineer, not a soldier. But he did not drop his tools. He did not step back. A woman's voice cut through the tension. Stop. Everyone turned. A human woman in a formal uniform pushed through the crowd. Her name was Choi Hana. She was a diplomat. Her face was pale but determined. Empress Vila, Hana said. This man is a citizen of the United Earth government. Under the Nexus Accords, you cannot take him without our consent. Vila looked at her with amusement. The Nexus Accords apply to species of equal standing. Humans are not equal to the Korath. You are children playing in the stars. We have rights, Hana insisted. You have what we allow you to have, Vila said. She waved her hand. Take them both. The guards grabbed Tay. He struggled, but it was useless. They were too strong. Other guards moved toward Hana, but station security finally stepped in. There was a tense moment. Weapons were raised. Just the male, Vila decided. The female can deliver my message. Tell your people that I have taken one of yours. If they want him back, they can try to take him. I would enjoy watching them fail. Hana watched helplessly as Tay was dragged toward the Korath ship. Their eyes met. Tay shook his head slightly. Do not do anything stupid, his eyes said. But Hana saw something else there too. He was not afraid. He was angry. The Korath ship departed. Nexus Prime returned to normal. Aliens went back to their business. For most of them, this was nothing unusual. The Korath took what they wanted. That was simply how things were. But Hana did not go back to her business. She walked quickly to her ship. She sat at her communication console. Her hands were shaking as she typed dot. She sent a message to Earth. It was short. Just a few words. They took one of ours. She did not know it then, but those words would shake the galaxy. Because humans were not like other species. When someone took one of them, they did not accept it. They did not move on, dot. They came to get them back. The message reached Earth in 6 hours. It traveled through relay stations across human space, passed through encrypted channels, and landed on the desk of General Lisiok. He read it 3 times. Then he made a call. Within 12 hours, the United Defense Council gathered in an underground room in Seoul. 15 men and women sat around a long table. These were the leaders of human military power. They controlled 300 warships and 50 colony worlds. They looked tired and worried. General Lee stood at the head of the table. He was 60 years old with gray hair and hard eyes. He had fought in 2 wars. He had never lost. You have all seen the report, he said. A Korath Empress has taken one of our citizens. A man named Park Tae, an engineer. She claims he now belongs to her. Admiral Kim Yuna sat to his right. She was 45, with short black hair and a face that rarely smiled. She commanded the 7th Fleet. Among her peers, she was considered the best tactical mind humanity had. What do we know about the Korath military? Asked one of the council members. General Lee pressed a button. A hologram appeared above the table. It showed thousands of ships. The Korath Dominion has approximately 10,000 warships, he said. Their technology is at least 200 years ahead of ours. They have ruled their sector for 10,000 years. They have never lost a war. The room was silent. We have 300 ships, another council member said quietly. This is not a fight we can win. Then what do you suggest? Admiral Yuna asked. Her voice was cold. We let them take our people? We accept that humans can be property? One man, the council member replied. One man is not worth the destruction of our species. Admiral Yuna stood up slowly. She looked around the room at each face. One man, she repeated. Let me tell you about one man. In our history, there was a soldier trapped behind enemy lines. His country sent 50 men to save him. 30 of those men died. People asked the same question you just asked. Was one man worth 30 lives? But they kept sending rescue missions. Because that one man was theirs. And humans do not leave their people behind. She walked around the table as she spoke. Every empire that ever tried to enslave humans learned this lesson. We are not a species that accepts defeat. We are not a species that forgets our own. The Korra think we are weak because we are new to space. They think we are children. They think they can take whatever they want from us. She stopped and placed her hands on the table. If we let them take Park Tay, they will take more. Then more. Then they will take our colonies, our ships, our freedom. The line must be drawn somewhere. I say we draw it here. I say we draw it now. I say one man is worth everything. The room was silent. Then, one by one, the council members nodded. General Lee looked at the faces around him. He saw fear, but he also saw determination. This was what made humans different. They were afraid, but they would fight anyway. The vote, he said. All in favor of military response? Every hand went up. General Lee turned to a communications officer. Send a message to the Korath Empress. Tell her she has 72 hours to return our citizen. If she refuses, we will come and take him back. And we will consider her refusal an act of war. The message was sent. It traveled across the stars to the Korath flagship, where Empress Vila sat on her throne. When she received it, she was drinking wine. She read the message and started to laugh. The humans threaten me? She said to her court. These insects threaten the Korath Dominion. Lord Darrow smiled. They are fools, Empress. We could destroy their entire civilization in a week. High Commander Rin, the military chief, was not smiling. Empress, perhaps we should consider returning the human. He's just one man. Is he worth a war? Vila's eyes turned cold. Are you afraid of humans, Commander? No, Empress. But war is expensive and unpredictable. There will be no war, Vila said. There will be a slaughter. The humans will see our fleet, and they will surrender. And if they do not surrender, we will burn their worlds until they do. She dictated her response. It was simple. Come and take him. Meanwhile, in a gilded cell aboard the flagship, Park Tay sat alone. The room was beautiful. The bed was soft. The food was excellent. But the door was locked, and guards stood outside. Empress Vila visited him that evening. She wore a gown of silver and gold. She looked at him with curiosity, like he was a puzzle she wanted to solve. Your people have threatened me, she said. They say they will go to war for you. Do you believe them? Tay looked at her calmly. Yes, why? You are one man, an engineer. You are nobody. To you, I am nobody, Tay said. To them, I am one of them. That is enough. Vila sat down across from him. I do not understand. In the Korath Dominion, we sacrifice millions for the glory of the Empire. What is one life compared to that? That is why you do not understand us, Tay said. For you, people are tools. They exist to serve the Empire. For us, the nation exists to serve the people. Every life matters. Every single one. Vila studied his face. Your people will die for this belief. Maybe, but we will not stop believing it. She stood up. Then they will die. Back on Earth, shipyards that have been quiet for decades roared to life. Reserves were called up. Volunteers lined up at recruitment centers. Factories that made consumer goods switched to making weapons. Admiral Yuna boarded her flagship, a massive vessel called the Indomitable. She stood on the bridge and looked at the stars. Around her, 300 ships prepared for war. She thought about Park Tay. She had never met him. She probably never would. But he was one of hers. That was all that mattered. She activated the fleet-wide communication system. Her voice reached every ship, every soldier, every pilot. This is Admiral Yuna. In 72 hours, we go to war. The enemy outnumbers us 30 to 1. They have better ships, better weapons, and more experience. Many of us will not come back. But we do not fight because we think we will win. We fight because one of our people needs us. We fight because that is who we are. Humanity does not abandon its own. Not one. Not ever. She paused. So check your weapons. Say goodbye to your families. And prepare to show the galaxy what happens when someone takes one of ours. The fleet moved toward the border. The stars waited. And across the galaxy, other species watched with disbelief. The humans were actually going to fight. They were going to war for one man. The Korath expected a simple war. They expected the humans to line up their ships and fight like civilized species. They expected to crush them in one great battle and go home. They did not get what they expected. On the first day of the war, Korath sensors detected the human fleet moving toward the border. High Commander Rin gathered his forces. 10,000 ships formed a wall of metal and fire. They waited for the humans to come. The humans did not come. Instead, 50 small human ships appeared behind Korath lines. They had traveled through unmapped routes, through asteroid fields and gas clouds that the Korath considered impossible to cross. They hit a fuel depot and destroyed it in minutes. Then they vanished. Rin was confused. This was not war. This was something else. The next day, 30 human ships attacked a communication relay. They destroyed it and killed 200 Korath soldiers. Then they vanished again. The day after that, 20 ships hit a supply convoy. 50 Korath transport vessels burned in space. This continued for weeks. The humans never fought fair. They never formed lines. They attacked from shadows, from behind, from angles that should not have been possible. They used the terrain of space itself as a weapon. Asteroids, radiation fields, the gravity wells of planets. Everything became dangerous. Rin sent ships to hunt them. The hunters became the hunted. Human ships would lead them into traps. They would pretend to run, and when the Korath followed, they would find more human ships waiting. In the court of Empress Viola, advisors argued and blamed each other. Lord Darrow said they needed more ships. Rin said they needed a different strategy. Viola said nothing. She watched the reports with growing frustration. Meanwhile, deep in Korath territory, a small ship moved silently through the darkness. It carried 12 soldiers, led by Captain Han Wu. Han Wu was 35 years old. He had been a soldier since he was 18. He had done things that would give normal people nightmares. But he did them because someone had to. His mission now was simple. Find Park Tae. Find where they were keeping him. His team had been behind enemy lines for 3 weeks. They moved from shadow to shadow, gathering information, avoiding patrols. They hacked into Korath systems and stole data. They bribed aliens who hated the Korath. Slowly, they pieced together the truth. Tae was being held on the Empress's personal station, a massive structure called the Crown of Stars. It orbited the Korath homeworld. It was the most heavily defended place in the Dominion. Hanwoo sent this information back to Admiral Yuna. Then he waited. Back at the border, Yuna received the message. She looked at the maps. The Crown of Stars was impossible to reach. There were dozens of defensive platforms around it. The entire Korath home fleet protected it, but she filed the information away. She would find a way. Somehow. The war continued. The Korath grew more frustrated. They had never faced an enemy like this. Other species fought with honor. They formed armies and met in battle. Humans did not care about honor. They cared about winning. One Korath commander called it cowardice. Admiral Yuna called it common sense. Then Empress Vela made a decision that would change everything. She was tired of this slow bleeding. She wanted to hurt the humans. She wanted to make them feel pain. She wanted to break them. Lord Darrow whispered in her ear. Attack their colonies. Burn their worlds. Show them the price of defying the Korath. Rin objected. Empress, that will only make them fight harder. Viola smiled coldly. Good. Let them fight. Let them throw everything they have at us. Then we will crush them. She ordered a battle group of 500 ships to attack the human colony world called New Bizin. 2 million people lived there. Families, children, old people, ordinary humans living ordinary lives. The Korath fleet moved toward New Bizan. They did not try to hide. They wanted the humans to know. They wanted them to be afraid. Human intelligence detected the fleet immediately. The information reached Admiral Yuna within hours. She faced an impossible choice. Her fleet was scattered across Korath space, fighting their guerrilla war. If she gathered them to defend New Bizin, she would lose everything they had gained. The Korath would plug the holes they had created. The war would reset, but if she did not defend New Bizin, 2 million people would die. Her officers waited for her decision. Some of them thought she would sacrifice the colony. It was the logical choice, the strategic choice. Sometimes, leaders had to make hard decisions. Yuna closed her eyes. She thought about Park Tae, alone in his cell. She thought about why they were fighting this war. One man. Every life matters. If they let New Bizin burn, what were they fighting for? She opened her eyes. Her voice was steady. All ships, all units, redirect to New Bizan. Maximum speed. Her second officer looked shocked. Admiral, if we do this, we lose our advantage. The Korath will recover. Then we will find another advantage, Yuna said. We do not sacrifice our people. Not 2 million. Not one. That is the whole point. Messages flew across space. Scattered human ships changed course. From every corner of Korath territory, they raced toward a single point. They had 1 week to get there. On the Korath flagship, Rin received reports of the human movements. He smiled grimly. The humans were doing exactly what Vela wanted. They were gathering in one place. Now, finally, there would be a real battle. On New Bizin, people looked up at the sky and waited. They knew what was coming. Many of them packed their things and prepared to evacuate. But many more stayed. They armed themselves with whatever they could find. Farming tools, old weapons, kitchen knives. They were not soldiers, but they were human. And humans did not run. On her ship, racing toward the colony, Admiral Yuna prepared her battle plans. She knew the odds. The Korath would have numbers on their side, technology on their side, experience on their side. But she had something they did not understand. She had people who refused to quit. People who would fight until their last breath for each other. People who believed that every life was worth dying for. The ships flew through space. The stars watched. And on the crown of stars, Park Tae felt something change. He did not know what was happening. He could not see the fleets moving, the weapons being prepared, the millions of humans ready to fight and die. But somehow, he knew they were coming. The Korath fleet arrived at New Bizin expecting easy victory. 500 warships moved into orbit. They charged their weapons. They prepared to rain fire on the world below. Then they saw the human fleet waiting for them. Admiral Yuna had positioned her ships in a sphere around the planet. There were only 280 ships. They were smaller than Korath vessels. Their weapons were weaker, but they were there. High. Commander Rin commanded the Korath fleet from his flagship. He looked at the human formation and felt something unexpected. Respect. The humans knew they could not win this battle. They had come anyway. Broadcast on all frequencies, Rin ordered. Offer them surrender. Tell them they can leave if they give us the planet. The message went out. Admiral Yuna's response was simple. No. Rin nodded slowly. Then we will destroy them. All ships, advance. The battle began. Kara's ships moved forward in perfect formation. They fired in coordinated waves. Their weapons were devastating. In the first minute, 12 human ships exploded, but the humans did not break. They did not run. They held their positions and fired back. Admiral Yuna watched the battle from her bridge. Screens showed her fleet dying around her. Red lights everywhere. Alarms screaming. But she stayed calm. Focus fire on their command ships, she ordered. Ignore the others. Cut off the head. Human ships stopped trying to fight the whole Karath fleet. Instead, they worked together in small groups. 5 ships would target one Karath vessel. They would pour fire into it until it died, then move to the next dot. It was not elegant. It was desperate and messy. But it worked. Karath's ships started dying. Not many, not enough. But they died. Rin watched his fleet take damage and felt confused. The humans should have been destroyed by now. They were outmatched in every way. Yet they kept fighting. What is wrong with them? He muttered. Why do they not retreat? A Karath officer beside him shook his head. They are insane, Commander. They fight like animals. No, Rin said quietly. They fight like something else. Something we do not understand. The battle raged for hours. The sphere around New Bizon grew thinner as human ships fell. Holes opened in the defense. Karath vessels pushed through. On the surface, people watched the sky burn. Ships exploded like falling stars. Debris rained down on empty fields. The children were in shelters underground. The adults stood outside, armed with whatever they had. A farmer named Beek Jin held an old rifle that had belonged to his grandfather. He had never fired a weapon in his life. But when the first Karath landing craft appeared in the sky, he raised it anyway. Karath ground forces landed on the outskirts of the capital city. They expected civilians to run. Instead, they found resistance. Teachers with hunting bows. Factory workers with metal pipes. Old men and women who had survived hardships that would break most species. They could not defeat Karath soldiers. They knew this. They fought anyway. The city burned. People died. But the Karath advance slowed Dot in orbit. Admiral Yuna saw that the defensive sphere was failing. She had less than 100 ships left. The Karath had over 400. Simple math said she had lost. She looked at the planet below. Cities were burning. Her people were dying. For a moment, she felt despair. Then she pushed it away. All ships, she said. New orders. We break through the enemy fleet. Target their flagship. Everything we have. Her officers stared at her. This was suicide. The flagship was in the center of the Karath formation. To reach it, they would have to fly through hundreds of enemy ships. Admiral, her second officer said, we cannot survive that. I know, Yuna replied. Do it anyway. The remaining human fleet changed formation. They stopped defending. They stopped being careful. They formed a single wedge and drove straight into the heart of the Karath fleet. Ships died by the dozens. The Karath could not believe what they were seeing. The humans were not retreating. They were attacking. It made no sense, but it worked. The sudden change confused the Karath. Their careful formation broke as ships tried to stop the human charge. Some collided with each other. Others fired on their own allies by accident. The indomitable Admiral Yuna's flagship pushed through the chaos. It took hit after hit. Sections of the ship went dark. Fires burned in the corridors. But it kept moving. They reached the enemy flagship. Yuna fired every weapon she had. Missiles, lasers, everything. The Karath flagship's shields flared and died. Its hull cracked open. Explosions rippled across its surface. Rin felt his ship shake around him. He grabbed the console to stay standing. On his screens, he saw the human ship coming apart, but still firing. Still fighting. "Retreat," he ordered. "All ships retreat." The Korath fleet pulled back. They were not destroyed. They still had more ships than the humans. But they had lost their flagship. They had lost their coordination. And they had lost something more important. They had lost their certainty. The bombardment stopped. New Bizen was scarred, but alive. Half the capital city was rubble. Thousands were dead. But millions survived. On the ground, Beatjin put down his rifle. His hands were shaking. Around him, people were crying and hugging each other. They had survived. Against all odds, they had survived. In orbit, only 37 human ships remained. The Indomitable was barely functioning. Admiral Yuna sat in her chair, bleeding from a wound on her head. Her bridge was filled with smoke and dead officers, but she was smiling. "Message to Earth," she said quietly. "New Bizen is secure. The enemy has withdrawn. Send medical ships." Across the galaxy, other species watched the battle footage in stunned silence. The numbers did not make sense. The humans should have lost. By every calculation, they should have been wiped out. But they had won. On the Crown of Stars, Empress Vila watched the same footage. Her advisors were arguing, blaming each other, demanding explanations. She ignored them all. She went to Park Tae's cell. He was sitting on the floor, eyes closed. He opened them when she entered. "You heard about the battle," she said. It was not a question. "Yes. Your people are insane. They threw their lives away. For what? A planet? They could have saved their ships, retreated, fought another day." Tae looked at her calmly. "There were 2 million people on that planet. You wanted to kill them. We did not allow it. You lost 200 ships, thousands of soldiers, for people you never met." "Yes." Vila studied his face. She was trying to understand. She could not. "Why?" she asked. "Why do you value life so much?" "It is just life. There is so much of it. What does one planet matter? What does one person matter?" Tae stood up slowly. He walked to the window and looked at the stars. "That is the difference between us," he said. "You see life as cheap. We see it as precious. Every life. Every single one. My people are not fighting because they think they can win. They are fighting because some things are more important than winning." He turned to face her. "They will keep coming, no matter how many die, no matter how long it takes. They will not stop until I am free. And if I die before they reach me, they will not stop until you pay for it." Vila felt something cold in her chest. She had ruled for 300 years. She had destroyed civilizations. She had never felt afraid. Until now. The war continued for 6 more months after New Bizen, but something had changed. The Korath no longer fought with confidence. They fought with fear. Human ships returned to their guerrilla tactics. They struck and vanished. They destroyed supply lines. They killed officers. They made the Korath afraid to sleep, but something else was happening too. Something the Korath never expected. Other species began to turn against them. For thousands of years, smaller civilizations had lived under Korath rule. They had been claimed, conquered, controlled. They had accepted this because they believed the Korath were invincible. Now they watched humans fight and win. They watched a species with 300 ships stand against an empire of 10,000. They watched and began to think dangerous thoughts. What if we could do that too? One by one, trade agreements collapsed. Allies became neutral. Subjects began to whisper of rebellion. The Korath Dominion was bleeding from 1,000 small cuts. Empress Vila grew desperate. She executed advisors who gave her bad news. She sent fleets to crush rebellions, but there were too many. The Empire was falling apart. Deep in Korath space, Captain Han Wu and his team prepared for the mission they had been waiting for. The Crown of Stars. Admiral Yuna had rebuilt her fleet. Not to full strength, but enough. She launched an attack on 3 Korath military worlds at the same time. It was a feint, a distraction. But the Korath did not know that. Rin took his fleet to defend the military worlds. He could not afford to lose them. This left the Crown of Stars with only its local defenses. Han Wu made his move. His ship was small and fast. It had been modified to avoid Karth sensors. They slipped through the defensive grid in the shadow of an asteroid. They docked on a maintenance port that their intelligence said was rarely used. 12 humans stepped onto the station. They carried weapons, explosives, and photographs of Park Tae. They had memorized the layout. They knew where he was being held. They knew what they had to do. The first guard they encountered never saw them coming. Han Wu broke his neck silently. They hid the body and moved on. They moved through service corridors and maintenance shafts. They avoided main halls. When they encountered patrols, they waited in shadows until they passed. It took 3 hours to reach the detention level. Tae was alone in his cell when the door opened. He looked up expecting Vila or another guard. Instead, he saw human faces. Park Tae? Han Wu asked. Tae stood slowly. He had lost weight. His hair was longer, but his eyes were the same. Clear and calm and unbroken. You came, he said. We always come, Han Wu replied. Can you walk? I can run if I need to. They gave him a weapon. He took it without hesitation. He had never been a soldier, but he had learned patience in this cell. He had learned to wait. He had known this moment would come. Alarms started screaming. They found the bodies, one of Han Wu's men reported. Then we run, Han Wu said. They ran. The station became chaos. Guards rushed toward the detention level. Alerts flashed on every screen. Empress Vila received the news in her throne room. She screamed in rage. Find them. Kill them all. But bring me the human alive. Han Wu's team fought through corridor after corridor. They used explosives to collapse passages behind them. They used traps to slow pursuers. They were outnumbered 1,000 to 1, but they did not stop. 2 of Han Wu's men fell. Then 3 more. They kept moving. They reached the hangar bay. Their ship was waiting. Freedom was 50 meters away. Empress Vela stood in their path. She was armed. Her face was twisted with fury. Behind her stood 20 of her personal guards, the best soldiers in the Dominion. You cannot escape, she said. You are insects. You are nothing. I will take the human, and I will make him watch as I destroy your pathetic species. Han Wu raised his weapon. He had 2 soldiers left. They were wounded, tired, almost out of ammunition. Then Tae stepped forward. He walked past Han Wu and stopped in front of Vila. She could have killed him. She did not. She wanted to hear what he had to say. You still do not understand, Tae said. His voice was quiet but clear. You built your empire on the belief that some lives are worth less than others. That you could take whatever you wanted. That power gives you the right to own people. He looked at her without fear. My people came for me. Not because I am important. Not because I am special. They came because I am one of them. Because to them, every life matters. Every single one. You cannot defeat that. You cannot conquer that. You can kill us, but you cannot make us stop believing it. He raised his weapon. And because we believe it, we will never stop fighting you. Not until every person you have claimed is free. Not until your empire is dust. Not until the galaxy knows that people are not property. Vila laughed. But it was a hollow sound. Pretty words, she said. But words do not stop weapons. Han Wu pressed a button. Explosives he had placed around the hangar detonated. The walls cracked. Air began to rush out into space. In the chaos, Han Wu grabbed Tay and threw him toward their ship. His remaining soldiers provided cover fire. Vela's guards were blown off their feet by the decompression. Han Wu took a hit in the chest. He kept moving. They reached the ship. The doors closed. The pilot launched immediately. Behind them, the crown of stars was damaged but not destroyed. Vela survived. But as she stood in the ruined hangar, watching the human ship escape, she felt her empire crumbling around her. Within a month, 3 major subject species declared independence. The Korath military was stretched too thin to stop them all. Rebellions spread like fire. Within 3 months, Vela's own council turned against her. They blamed her for the war. They blamed her for the empire's collapse. They said she had started this disaster over one human. They were right. Empress Vela was removed from power. The new Korath government sued for peace. They agreed to release all claimed individuals. They agreed to never claim again. They agreed to pay reparations. The war was over. Park Tay returned to Earth. There was no parade. He did not want one. He went back to work as an engineer. He fixed things. That was his job. When reporters asked him about his time in captivity, he did not say much. When they asked him if he ever doubted that rescue would come, he shook his head. No, he said. I knew they would come. That is what we do. Years later, a historian from another species came to Earth to study the war. He met with a human ambassador and asked a question that had bothered his people for decades. How could you risk so much for one man? You nearly destroyed your civilization. You lost thousands of soldiers. You spent resources that could have built colonies. All for one person. The ambassador smiled. She was an old woman now, but her eyes were sharp. You still do not understand, she said. And that is why you could never beat us. She leaned forward. To you, one person is just a number. To us, one person is everything. Every life matters. Every single one. That is not a weakness. That is our greatest strength. Because when every life matters, people fight harder. They sacrifice more. They never give up. She sat back. The Korra thought they could take one of us and we would accept it. They were wrong. When you take one of ours, we do not move on. We do not forget. We burn the stars to bring them home. The historian wrote this down. He still did not fully understand. But he knew one thing for certain. He never wanted to be enemies with humans. And somewhere on Earth, Park Tay finished his shift, went home, and looked up at the stars. He thought about Empress Vela. He thought about the war. He thought about everyone who had died for him. He did not feel worthy of their sacrifice. He was just an engineer. Nobody special. But that was the point. He was nobody special. And they came for him anyway, because that was what it meant to be human.